Hi, I'm Danielle. Welcome to my perfume journal. In this video, I'm going to reset my perfume tray for the upcoming week. This is what my perfume tray looked like at the beginning of last week, and this is what my perfume tray looked like at the end of the week. I started the week with just 5 perfumes on the tray, but I actually only wore 2 of them. I could not seem to get enough of Lovely Lights this week by Sarah Jessica Parker. I've already almost emptied this entire bottle. It is a happy, springy, honeysuckle, musky white floral, and I was also having a moment this week with my bottle of Burberry Brit. It's an absolutely delicious sweet tart of a Fleurmont, beautiful blend of almond, peony, vanilla, pear, and it has this surprise lime note up at the top. So aside from Lovely Lights and Burberry Brit, I wore 2 other scents from my collection this week. I wore Stella Pop from Stella McCartney, and I wore Vera Wang's Embrace French Lavender and Tuberose Flanker. And wearing these 2 perfumes is what inspired me to set my tray for the upcoming week on a theme. And I'm leaving both of these perfumes on the tray for the upcoming week because it's going to be Tuberose week up here in the perfume journal. So here are my Tuberose themed perfumes on the tray for the upcoming week. And one thing I will say about me as a perfume enthusiast is that I don't tend to have multiple bottles of perfumes that smell very, very similar to one another. Like if I love a particular note, let's say orange blossom or rose or gardenia or tuberose, I try to actually find perfumes that showcase that note in very, very different ways. And on my tray this week are some of my Tuberose perfumes that I feel like reaching for, and I also think that they're all extremely different from one another. So before I show you my Tuberose perfumes for the week, I do want to make mention of 2 Tuberose perfumes that I think are quintessential and maybe even I'd call them important tuberoses because I think of them as 1, a gateway perfume to my love of tuberose in perfumery, and 2, because I think of them as referential, timeless, or classic tuberose scents. So the first one is the tuberose that, in my opinion, started it all. It's Robert Piguet's Fracas, created by Germaine Cellier in 1948. It is a masterpiece perfume. I only have a really small little referential vial of this perfume in its vintage format, and it is one of the finest drops of perfume that I own or will probably ever own in my lifetime. So Germaine Cellier is a groundbreaking perfumer. She was one of the first female perfumers in a very male-dominated industry, and her fragrances, her formulas, were considered absolutely pioneering and groundbreaking in their time, particularly Fracas. And the thing about tuberose is it's often associated with that like sweet bubblegummy kind of scent, but tuberose also has qualities that people might actually consider to be kind of unpleasant. I guess depending on how you look at it. I have seen tuberose described and I have smelled many tuberose perfumes that are almost like kind of cheesy in nature. They have this aspect of like spoiled butter to them. And tuberose can also be kind of like bodily in nature. And while Fracas is really a very beautiful, creamy, buttery tuberose perfume, it does teeter on the verge of having those cheesy or bodily qualities that the whole tuberose flower can impart into a fragrance. And I think that's what made it so like bodacious and bawdy in its time. Fracas was also reported to be Madonna's mom's signature scent and the inspiration for her own fragrance, Truth or Dare. And it's also the inspiration behind Carnal Flower for Frédéric Malle. So to me, Fracas is like Vivienne Westwood's Boudoir. It's a perfume that's like unequivocally pretty when you smell it. It's just beautiful. But there's definitely something kind of raw beneath the surface. And I cannot talk about Tuberose without talking about Poison from Christian Dior. This is a perfume I went through bottles and bottles of in the 1980s. And the urban legend of the decade was that Poison and Giorgio Beverly Hills were banned from being worn in restaurants because they were like so dense and so unyielding that no one in the restaurant could enjoy or even taste their meal with these heavy, heavy scents weighing down all the air in the room. And whether or not that's actually true is kind of irrelevant because Poison is definitely a perfume that could ruin a meal. It overtakes your senses with its potency, but I have to say that if I had to choose between wearing the original Poison in its purest vintage form or eating a Michelin 5-starred meal, I'm going to choose the Poison every single time. At its core, it's definitely a tuberose perfume, but not in the way that Fracas is expressly tuberose. Like, you smell Fracas and you know it is a tuberose perfume. But in Poison, the tuberose is what I would say gives the perfume its soul. Poison is a rich, really plummy, very velvety, spicy, woody, berry, powdery concoction of a perfume. It is super tenacious. It hangs around for a very long time. It is a legendary perfume for a reason and a classic in the tuberose category forever and ever. And just a quick peek inside this Poison box. It's not a bottle of perfume. It's actually this vintage Poison bracelet that was a gift from my brother and sister-in-law for my 50th birthday. At one time, this bracelet was actually filled with Poison perfume, and you would unscrew the crystal cap from the end of the bracelet, dab on the perfume, put the cap back on, and wear the bracelet. It is one of my most treasured vintage items, and I absolutely love it, and maybe one day I'll have a little bit of vintage Poison to put back inside. Okay, so let's kick off Tuberose Week on the perfume tray with Vera Wang's Embrace Flanker, French Lavender, and Tuberose. I am leaving this one on the tray this week because last week I couldn't get enough of this perfume as my scent of the night. I wore it every single night last week, and I suspect I'm going to want to keep wearing it again and again this week. So this perfume is like equal parts clean and fresh and creamy and sweet. And that is one of my favorite scent profiles. There's like a yin and a yang to perfumes like this. And here it comes from the balance of, I think, the lavender and the mandarin, giving it like that fresh and clean quality. And then the cocoa, tuberose, and vanilla, giving it that soft, velvety, sweet creaminess. And every night last week, I would spray this all over. I would hop into bed, pull the duvet up over me, and I was in this like comforting, cozy, sweet, fresh cloud that just lulled me right to sleep. And as you can maybe see in this video, I drained about half of this bottle last week, so I think I'm going to need another one pretty soon. And this is such an affordable perfume. You can get a bottle of this for like under $25. So I don't mind spraying this one to my heart's content. So this is Stella Pop from Stella McCartney. This is a perfume I'd wanted for a long, long time. It's very, very hard to find in the US. And so when I went on vacation last month, this was a gift to me from my friend Cass. So thank you again, Cass. And Stella Pop is just as wonderful as I knew that it would be. On Parfumo, the listed notes are only tuberose and sandalwood, but I know there's a lot more going on in this perfume than just those two notes. But you definitely pick up the tuberose in this perfume. Mostly what I get from this perfume, I definitely pick up violet. You get the tuberose. You get the creamy sandalwood in the base, but there's also a little tiny bit of tomato leaf in this perfume. And to me, it's like someone put a green leafy wreath right on top of the doll's head. I think that this is a great perfume that features tuberose so beautifully, so playfully, and I'm really looking forward to wearing it again this week. So this is the perfume that I am wearing as I am filming this video. It is the 80s icon Giorgio Beverly Hills in its current formulation. Now, back in the 80s, I did not own Giorgio myself. My best friend did. It was one of her signature scents, and it smelled absolutely amazing on her. I always wanted to have a bottle of this perfume. Giorgio is really it's really a huge yellow floral perfume. It's very yellow feeling, but The tuberose in this is definitely recognizable. It's like tuberose and ylang ylang are laying next to each other and sunning themselves side by side. So Giorgio walks into the room 10 minutes before you do if you are wearing it. It is so huge and loud and enormous in its sillage and its projection. And like I said, there was an urban legend in the 80s that either Giorgio or Poison or both were banned from restaurants because they were so huge that they filled the room and they ruined everybody's dining experience. So with Giorgio, you get this big fruity burst in the opening. So back in the day, there was a brand of gum called Freshen Up. It was like a little pillow of gum, and there was a glob of this like flavored gel in the middle. So when you bit into the gum, the gel just burst into your mouth. And that's a little bit like how Giorgio opens to me, except instead of a glob of like minty gel, you get a burst of stone fruit. And then the heart of this perfume is definitely in the huge florals. You mostly get, again, that tuberose and the ylang ylang, but they're supported by a ton of other florals, as was the norm in the 1980s, the kitchen sink note lists. But the other florals in this perfume are definitely in smaller concentrations. The tuberose and the ylang ylang are really the biggest florals in this perfume. And so then as the perfume dries down, the big florals, they definitely stick around, but there's a very 80s style patchouli, oak moss combination in the base. Then there's some very sweet vanilla, some creamy sandalwood, and a ton of musk. And I know I talk about the 80s a lot on my channel, but the thing is, none of the perfumes in the 80s smelled alike. Every time there was a new release, it felt like something very original. So this is the current formulation of Giorgio, which is absolutely fine with me. But I will say that I remember the original that is like imprinted into my brain for the last 4+ decades was just a little bit rounder, a little bit softer, a little bit sweeter than this one. But I think this is about as close as you can come to an original formulation when you consider changes in available materials or material restrictions over the years. So I think this version of Giorgio still smells absolutely wonderful. So next on the tray is a flanker of L'Interdit from Givenchy. This is L'Interdit Rouge. So in this perfume, the tuberose is very spicy. She's a sassy tuberose. And this perfume to me is mostly tuberose and then a bathtub full of patchouli. It's very dense, it's very rich, it's very deep. It's a spicy, spicy floral. And I got this perfume back in December, so I've really only worn this in the winter months. This perfume is incredible in the cold. That spicy floral with the deep patchouli base. It's the kind of warmth and spiciness that you crave in the colder months. But I also have a feeling that this perfume is going to be beautiful in the heat. I don't know, maybe it's going to be horrible and make me nauseous, but I'm going to give it a try. So my spicy tuberose for the tray this week is L'Interdit Rouge from Givenchy. So next we have one of my perfume treasures that I keep in my super special perfume drawer. This is Michael from Michael Kors. It's a discontinued perfume that you can actually still find at a good price if you are very, very patient about waiting for it to appear. This is one of those perfumes that is super duper price gouged on the secondhand market because now it is kind of rare, but there are people out there that are still letting this one go at a reasonable price. And if I had to surmise, I think the reason that people are letting this one go is because it does start to feel a little bit dated at this point. This perfume came out in 2000, and this is a super, super heavy, ultra dense floral. This feels like someone sprayed down 5 weighted blankets with a bunch of tuberose perfume and then laid them all on top of you at once. So you really have to love a big, spicy, sweet floral number to appreciate this one. I can definitely see how this perfume would not be for everyone, but I think this perfume is really outstanding. This perfume was created by Laurent Le Gournac, who has a huge library of really varied perfumes in his catalog, And most notably for me, he worked on Sarah Jessica Parker's Stash, which is one of my favorite perfumes of all time. So what I mostly get from Michael, aside from this ginormous tuberose explosion, is the beautiful peachy osmanthus note. It also has a really interesting tamarind spice note in the opening, which feels like a little bit sweet and plummy. And then it has this gorgeous, velvety, woody, musky base. But because this perfume is not messing around, this is one of my wear it at home scents. I don't usually tend to wear this one around other people because it is so imposing. And I could see how this perfume could quickly give someone who is very sensitive to scents a massive, massive headache, or even make them feel like a little bit nauseous because this perfume is a lot. To me, this perfume is incredibly beautiful, so I will continue to enjoy this one at home. This one makes like vacuuming and laundry and cleaning bathrooms feel almost glamorous. Finally, on the tray this week is my travel size of Le Grand Jeu from Voyages Imaginaires. This perfume was on my wish list for ages and ages. I was just about to buy a bottle, and then somehow the universe smiled on me and I won this travel size in a giveaway. And this perfume is, without a doubt, the best tropical floral perfume I have ever smelled in my entire life. I think that the quality of the natural ingredients in this perfume is so high, so excellent, that nothing I have ever smelled will compare to this perfume. This is just a simple, simple blend of tuberose, gardenia, coconut, and vanilla. That's it. It is not overworked. It is not overdone. It doesn't include like this whole buffet of additional tropical notes to make sure you know it's a summery tropical scent. It is just elegant perfumery at its finest. The tuberose in this perfume is perfection, especially paired with the gardenia. To me, that's just such a like peanut butter and jelly combination of notes. Gardenia and tuberose together, they are just wonderful. And then there's the sweetness of the coconut in the top and the vanilla in the base that gives everything just the right balance. This is like a poolside cabana of a scent. It is classy and it is totally refined. I honestly cannot say enough about how much I love this perfume. This is one of the few expensive fragrances out there that to me is 100% worth the price. The last time I checked, I think a bottle of this was like around $195, but they also sell refills in the same size, 100 ml, for $150. So I would happily just buy the refill and then decant it into my little travel size every time it runs out. So I'm definitely looking forward to wearing this beautiful tropical version of a tuberose perfume this week. Okay, so there we have it. Tuberose week on my tray with many of my favorite tuberoses out for the wearing. Thank you so much for watching, for spending your time here with me, and most of all, for chatting perfumes with me in the comments. I really appreciate it. I hope you all have a great week, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.